Time to head to the deep dark with this custom Minecraft origin, Abyssal Abomination, a 3-impact origin created by the Discord user known as Sinful Gaming. You hail from the Umbral Abyss, a part of the dimension the Skulkers came from, but unlike the Skulkers, you are basically a living shadowy abyss. Your fondness for Sculk makes you have a strong affinity with it that continues centuries later and leads you to roam the ancient city you reside in. One punch, you can use your fist to mine. With this ability, your bare fist, as well as any items you hold in your hand, effectively will be able to break at the normal speed of a diamond pickaxe, as well as the durability levels of a diamond pickaxe. You can mine diamonds, you can mine obsidian. It's still very slow to mine obsidian, as you would expect when it comes to a default diamond pickaxe, but overall it means that you won't need to really worry about creating any form of pickaxe of any sort until you need something like Silk Touch or Fortune on those bad boys, which you won't really be expecting to do until way in the later game. Ultimately a very massive help, especially considering that you spawn in an ancient city by default. Umbral Hunger, you have a stronger appetite due to being from the Abyss ×2. Ultimately your hunger will just decrease to twice the rate of normal. It's one of those things where you might notice it or you might not notice it depending on how you choose to play Minecraft. If you run around a lot more and tend to take a bit of random damage, you're probably going to pick up on this hunger decreasing a lot quicker, and it's going to be a lot more annoying to keep up with. But if you're not an active person in that way and you do a lot more mining, you do a lot more tasks that don't consume hunger anywhere near as much as sprint jumping around, then you may not be too concerned about that change as much as what the other people would be. Still, a very massive change. Dimensional Pocket, you can create a rift to store stuff. Your storage rift can be accessed by pressing your load hotbar activator key, which is usually bound to X by default, but may change depending on what other mods you have installed that may take use of the X key. And just ultimately, it's in the creative section of controls. There's two of them. You got your save hotbar and your load hotbar. Load hotbar is what activates this, and you gain access to a double chest worth of storage on your person at all times. This stuff in this storage will not be lost or drop out of your inventory whenever you do die. It is an ender chest, a double chest ender chest that doesn't require you to ever need to get an ender chest. Like, it's literally a better ender chest. You have a double chest worth of storage, easy to access at any time. Empty Void, you can creative fly, but it costs extra hunger. And yes, this is creative flight, so it comes with the beautiful upside of you no longer take any form of fall damage anymore. And I'm pretty sure you've all heard my gripes with having creative flight in any form of origin. It can definitely prove to be just something way too powerful for any form of survival Minecraft playthrough. But I do feel like the downside here is definitely far more noticeable and far more effective in disencouraging the active use of creative flight. Ultimately, you're probably going to love the whole no fall damage thing more often than your use of creative flight, because as long as you've got the creative flight activated, every 10 seconds you'll lose half a shank of food, which is really fast. Even when you're standing still and not doing anything, you'll still lose half a shank every 10 seconds, which means that, yeah, it's going to be very annoying to make use of this flight, especially if you're trying to do buildings or stuff moving across the world. You'll consume a lot more food a lot quicker than what you usually would, especially considering that your hunger's already double the normal pace. Imagine adding another additional hunger sink on top of it, on top of whatever else you might end up doing. Overall, again, it's still creative flight, so take that information as you will. Umbral Structure, due to being from the Abyss, you have immense strength, 15 DPS unarmed, you can see in the dark, have 5 more hearts than fleshy ones, regen at double the speed of natural regen 1, don't need air, and have a natural armor of 5 whilst being more transparent. Yes, this now makes you uber powerful. You can take some form of damage, but ultimately speaking, you pretty much one-shot a mass majority of common mobs you'll ever come across. If not one-shot, you'll two-shot them, but you'll one-shot when you crit them. It's just one of those things where it's honestly not going to be too much of a worry. And also, yes, this damage boost stacks on any form of weapon that you use, which leads to any form of weapons higher than being unarmed, you will do an immense amount of damage. Like, think about the fact that you've already got 15 unarmed damage. You add now the 8 from a default Netherite sword. That's 23 damage per second that you can easily do. That's without adding any form of enchantments whatsoever. Ultimately speaking, you can become stupendously strong that's able to output so much damage that it makes certain mobs that are usually very difficult, very, very easy to deal with. And to add on to the stupid amount of strength that you have now far more hearts than usual. You also have default armor points. Ultimately, you're extremely powerful. Like, it's just like one of the best PvP type origins you could use, because it's really buffed to be able to just PvP. This is a really fun one to play with any form of PvP setting, because you're super buffed up. You've got a lot of strength, you've got a lot of defense, you can take a lot more damage than usual, and your regeneration's a little faster. It's really good. Shade's Bolt. While holding any arrow, you can use the attack key to throw it. This is just a fun ability. I mean, ultimately speaking, you're not going to use this to output damage, because your bare fist is literally so much better at doing damage, but it can just be a funny thing to do. You have a stack of arrows, just rapid click and you're just machine gunning arrows. It's funny. It's just a fun thing to do. Like, yes, you'll output far more damage by using your bare hands or any form of weapon outside of a bow and arrow, but you can just spam these arrows like it's nobody's business, and that's fun. Umbral Senses. Your keen, dark senses allow you to identify and pull precious materials and treasures out of the stone that others would miss. This is a very interesting ability that whenever you're mining stone, you have a chance of discovering something out of that stone. Ultimately though, if you really think about it, this seems to be a very, very close copy of the ability that was in the original Bedrockian over 2 years ago. Basically, there's a few items that you have a chance of gaining anything. Ultimately, you have a 9% chance of gaining anything random as a bonus, and that random thing is iron at a 9% chance. You have gold at a 7.5% chance, you have an emerald at 0.1% chance, you've got a totem of undying at a 0.01% chance of finding, you got diamonds at a 0.05% chance of finding, lapis at 6%, redstone at 8%, and coal at 2%. Ultimately, it's very low percentile chances of finding anything at all out of the stone, and a very, very marginal percent to find anything major out of the stone, with the most rarest thing you can get is a totem of undying at a 0.01% chance of finding it. But the big thing there though is with the sheer amount of stone you'll mine in an average Minecraft world, you'll probably end up getting a bunch of totems of undying. That is probably one thing that I'd either make the odds extremely almost impossible, like a 0.0001% chance, where it's very, 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 very unlikely to happen ever in a playthrough, or just don't have the ability to get a totem of undying in general, because it seems to be one of those abilities that becomes way too easy, especially if you use ways to easily farm stone. Skulky Home. You belong to the same place as another abomination. This is the Warden, you live in the ancient city, you already knew this information considering that you're a deep, dark abomination nonsense. You're from the Abyss. Who else do you think you're gonna be in? Oh, what, a village? Nah, you're in the ancient city, butthead. You'll be fun down there. The Warden is your best friend too. He won't actually attack you. Even if you start hitting him, he still won't attack you. You're best buddies, and especially if you're hitting him, he still won't do anything to you. You're both good friends. Sculk buds. You've grown an affinity to the Sculk due to living with them for centuries. Basically speaking, this just means that any form of the Sculk senses will never activate unless you directly step on top of them, then they will activate. Same with literally everything else. It won't ever sense you coming because you're quiet as hell. It just means that, really. You can still activate senses by staying directly on top of them, but they won't be activated by any other forms of your movements. Whether you mine things, whether you open a chest, whether you eat food, you do anything that would usually cause movement noises, it doesn't anymore, which is pretty neat. Next is Consumer of Knowledge. Any type of food will make you sick. Instead, you consume experience. So, eating any form of foods will give you nausea and poison for around 10 seconds, which ultimately, aside from steaks and golden carrots, will just null and void the food effect, because you'll be immediately burning the saturation to recover from the poison damage that you'll be taking from eating said food. And how it converts your experience points into food is very interesting. Instead of doing a very similar system to what mending does, where part of the experience points you earn goes straight into your mending and part of the experience points go to experience bar, instead, every now and then, it will just convert your current levels of experience into your food. I can't exactly gather how exactly it does that process, though I could probably sift through the files and figure that out instead. From what I can gather with the coding, it basically tracks your food level, and then once you hit a certain food level, it will try to convert your current amount of experience points into restoring that food. The more experience points you have, the higher your saturation will go back up to, yada yada. It's very intriguing to say the least, and I don't understand the coding enough to understand precisely how it works, but you can gather by just watching the recordings. Photophobia. Due to being part of the Abyss, direct sunlight burns you literally. If you're exposed for too long, you will catch on fire. This is very simple. All you have is a little fire bar that will be displayed above your food bar. It will slowly increase as you're out in sunlight, and after around 30 to 40 seconds, it will max out and you'll start to burn up in the daylight. Ultimately, it takes a fair bit to charge up, and it will decrease at a far faster rate when you go underneath any form of cover, so as long as you get underneath a block every like 10-20 seconds or so, overall you'll be fine. You won't have to worry about burning up too much. And that's the origin. What are your thoughts? Let me know about your thoughts in the comments down below about this origin. Yes, I am going to try and get back into semi-regular content, but it's not just going to be origins. You'll understand more as content starts to come out. I hope you guys will be along for the ride, but until then, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!